Hey, we're back with American Miscellany, and we're on essay number 91, Vegetable Curiosities. And I'm pretty excited to get to this one. I think it'll be interesting. But we're here reading our book, American Miscellany. The essays are supposed to be historic and scientific. So our previous essay, essay 90, was on a visit to Venice, and that was a bit more historic in nature. We're moving on here to page 223, essay number 91. So let's read about vegetable curiosities. The vegetable kingdom has often supplied the natural theologist with the most striking and forcible of his illustrations in proof of the lavish goodness of the Creator. He has seen in its varied productions the exhaustless skill of the all-creative hand, in the adaptation to the wants and necessities of man, his wisdom, and in the gratifications they present to his eye, and to his taste the clear evidence that, while utility has been amply regarded, the enjoyment of the creature has been equally remembered, and abundantly provided for. With the most of the utilitarian products of this kingdom we are sufficiently familiar, but with regard to its more exquisite gifts, we believe a great deal of ignorance to prevail, which it will be our endeavor, though imperfectly, to dissipate. The Reverend Dr. Walsh, in a paper upon plants growing in the neighborhood of Constantinople, contained in the Horticultural Transactions, speaks in an interesting manner of several of the gourd tribe which grow luxuriantly in that district. One of the curious varieties was the Cucurbita claviformis, or Jonah's gourd, which is believed to be really that plant, which was caused to grow up over the head of the prophet in a single night. It forms a beautiful dense arbor through which the rays of even the eastern sun are unable to penetrate. Under its shade the easterns delight to smoke, while overhead the singular fruit of the plant hangs down in long, delicate, tempting clubs, somewhat like very stout candles. The fruit is not eaten in the uncooked state, but the central part being scooped out, it is filled with force meat and boiled, forming a very delicate and relishable repast. Another remarkable gourd is the Turk's turban, the Cucurbita cydariformis. In form, it is like a large quince placed on the top of a large melon, thus bearing a pretty close resemblance to a turban. The history of its origin is curious and more wonderful than true, as we fear. A gourd was planted in Campania near a quince, and an affection apparently springing up between the two, the gourd came to the conclusion of adopting the form of the quince, in addition to its own glossy rotundity, and the result was the form we have just noticed. It is used as an excellent addition to soups. Another species is the white, or Cucurbita pepo. This is found in the markets principally in the winter, and is commonly piled up in heaps, like cannonballs, or more like pyramids of snowballs. Romantic associations attach to this chaste production. It is presented at every native marriage ceremony to the married pair, and is supposed to ensure peace and prosperity to them and to their house. The Momordica elaterium, a member of the same family, is otherwise known as the squirting cucumber, from its possessing the strange property of squirting out its contents on one of the ends being pulled or touched. It is a common piece of a gardener's wit to request one to take hold of the dangerous end, and if we consent, the face and person are covered with the aerial slimy contents of this vegetable popgun. Where the plant grows in abundance, they may be heard popping off frequently, and by simply walking near these irritable instruments, the passenger is often shot in the eyes with great force by them. Some of this tribe occasionally reach an enormous size, particularly the mammoth or American gourd. Among many examples, one is especially recorded as having attained the colossal weight of 245 pounds, a size truly monstrous. Among delicious fruits, the tree is known as the tambarong, produces small berries of a yellow color and exquisite flavor. These are highly esteemed by the natives, who convert them into a beautiful sort of bread, which, curious to relate, in both color and flavor, bear the closest resemblance to our finest gingerbread. A tree belonging to the natural order Associnaceae, Assocynaceae, what that is, Associnaceae, produces a fruit called the cream fruit, which is estimated by some as being the most exquisite fruit in the world. Two are always united together, and they depend from the extremity of a small branch. When wounded, they yield a quantity of white juice resembling sugar or the best milk in its taste. For allaying the thirst incident to a tropical climate, this fruit is invaluable, and its delicious quality gives it an appropriate estimation in the eyes of the wary traveler in those regions. Of another curious fruit produced by one of the same tribe, Dr. Lindley writes, "The sages of Ceylon, having demonstrated, as they say, that paradise was in that island, and having therefore found it necessary to point out the forbidden fruit of the Garden of Eden, assures us that it was born on a species of this genus of the Divi-Ladner of their country. The proof they find of this discovery consists in the beauty of the fruit, said to be tempting in the fragrance of the flower, and in its still bearing the marks of the teeth of Eve. Till the offense was committed, which brought misery upon man, we are assured that the fruit was delicious, but from that time forward it became poisonous, as it now remains. The fruit of another tree of the same species affords a capital substitute for red currant jelly, and one of the celebrated cow trees, inhabitants of equatorial America, belongs to this natural order also. The delicious custard apples of the East and West Indies are produced by the Annona reticulata. It is a small, weakly branching tree, bearing fruit about the size of a tennis ball, which is of a dull brown color. The flesh is said to be of a yellowish color, soft and sweet, being about the consistence and sharing even much of the flavor of a good custard. Another variety is a small tree which bears a fruit of a greenish-yellow color and is the size of an artichoke, called the sweet sop. The skin is half an inch thick and encloses an abundance of a thick, sweet, luxurious pulp, tasting like clotted cream mixed with sugar. Rumphius says that it has in some degree the smell and taste of rose water, and is so delicious that one scarcely ever tires of partaking of it. It has a complete contrast in the sour sop, which belongs to the same species, which is a fruit of the size of a large pear, showing in a milk-white pulp of a sweetish acid taste. Sir Hans Sloane, in the Natural History of Jamaica, particularly mentions the alligator or avocado pear, the product of one of the lacerals. The fruit is the size of a large pear and possesses a rich, delicate flavor not unlike that of a peach. But it is described as being even more grateful. That's an interesting description of an avocado. Grateful. Another curious fruit is that called the mammee, M-A-M-M-E-E. It is round and yellow, and when ripe, the rind peels off, discovering the eatable part, which has an acid ulosaccharine taste. I don't know what ULO is. Acid ulosaccharine taste, and is of great fragrance. The tree by which it is borne reaches the size of the largest of our oaks. Those who are admirers of marmalade, and we expect a vast number of our readers are guilty of that indiscretion. He's right. Will learn with some surprise that nature presents the inhabitants of Suriname with the article ready confected. The fruit is called the marmalade box. It is about the size of a large apple and is covered with down. At first it is green, but when ripe it becomes brown and then opens into halves like a walnut. The pulp is of a brownish color, very sweet and tempting, and is eaten by the natives with the greatest avidity. The Brazilians boast also of a delicious fruit, the murucuya, murucuja, maybe that's it, murucuja, is said to be unsurpassed in fragrance and flavor, possessing a pulp of deep yellow and exhaling a fine vinous odor. Maybe they mean mango, murucuja. Yet it must yield to the favored, Yet it must yield to the far-famed mangosteen of the Indian archipelagos. This exquisite production is universally esteemed and is alike agreeable to strangers as to the inhabitants of its native country, whose pride it is. In shape and size, it is like a middling apple. It has a thickish purple rind, which surrounds 3 or 4 cloves of snow-white pulp, which is almost immediately dissolved. Must be a typo there. The flavor is extremely rich, yet never luscious, nor palls on the taste, and the fruits may be eaten alike ad libitum. Dr. Lindley says that an intelligent traveler and his companion were anxious to bring away with them some precise example of its flavor, but after satisfying themselves that it partook of the compound taste of the pineapple and the peach, they were obliged, after, of course, a series of tastings, to confess that it had many other equally delicious but utterly inexpressible flavors. Not only is it grateful to the strong and hardy, but even to the sick, who may eat it with impunity. And as if to swell the list of its good attributes, it is related that Dr. Solander was cured of putrid fever by eating it. A more singular and at first a more uninviting fruit is the durian. It combines in a remarkable manner an odor of the most disgusting and offensive, creating an almost insuperable aversion to the fruit, with a very rich and delicate taste. The tree is described as being something like a pear tree. The fruit externally resembles that of the breadfruit tree, the outside being covered with tubercles. When ripe, it contains several cells, in each of which is a large seed of the size of a pigeon's egg, embedded in a rich pulp. The taste is very curious and has been compared to a dish commonly known in Spain under the name of manjar blanc, composed of hen's flesh dressed in vinegar. The fruit really appears to partake more of an animal than vegetable nature and never becomes sickly or cloying. The natives are passionately fond of it, and when it is to be procured, live almost wholly on its luxurious cream-like flesh. It is said soon to turn putrid. One durian is worth more than a dozen pineapples. The rose apples of the East have long been held in esteem and take a high position among the elegant delicacies of nature. In all respects, this fruit is a lovely production. It is borne by a tree called the jambo. It is about as large as a pear externally. It is arrayed in a coat of the most splendid red. Inside, its pulp is of the loveliest white, and in perfume and taste, it much resembles the rose. Some varieties of the rose apple are so fine as to be preserved for the king's use alone. A beautiful variety, the jamrosade, is most highly perfumed with rose, while its color is a delicate, transparent pink mixed with white. The well-known guava is a fruit belonging to the natural order, the myrtle blooms. One of the chief delicacies of the Indian dessert is the fruit of the mango, the offspring of a considerable tree like a walnut. When fresh, it is of an exceedingly delicate, sweet, and acidulous flavor, and forms pickles and preserves, which are highly esteemed. Some of its varieties are so large as an infant's head and exceed 2 pounds in weight. Sir William Jones, in the Asiatic Researches, mentions a very delicious fruit known as the malura, which is curious in consequence of its possessing a fragrance strongly resembling that of the wallflower. The Chinese horticulture has long been famous for its productions, some of which are very anomalous. Marco Polo says they have some pears of most gigantic sizes. Pears are at all seasons in the Chinese markets, and some appear to have been fattened up to a degree of obesity that would do good to the eye of an agricultural prize breeder. What would be thought in England of a pear weighing 10 pounds, therefore somewhat of the size of a Southdown leg of mutton? Yet such this industrious traveler affirms as a fact, adding that they are white in color, melting, and most fragrant in taste. Other authors mention pears of approximate sizes, some measuring nearly 16 inches in circumference the long way, and upward of a foot the round way. Their peaches, too, are equally fine. Many of them are the most beautiful colors and exquisite flavor, and some attain enormous sizes. The Chinese gardeners boast of having produced peaches weighing 2 pounds, and it is not for us to doubt their assertion, although we know somewhat of the elasticity of the Chinese conscience. They are also said to be possessed of the valuable secret of preserving fruit gathered in October until the succeeding January, in all its beauty, freshness, and flavor. Among other fruits, the flat peach well deserves the title of a horticultural curiosity. It is in all respects like a peach, except that it is flattened out into a cake. This fruit is well known at Canton. Its color is a pale yellow. When cut into, a beautiful circle of pink is seen surrounding the stone and radiating into a mass of delicately colored pulp. In the indulgence of their dwarfing propensities, they manufacture, for such it is, miniature fruit trees of various kinds, by the method now become familiar to most persons. Large sums are set on the heads of those diminutive trees in proportion to their ugliness and their abundance of fruit. Venerable old plum trees, a foot high, laden with fruit, are without a price, while finger fruits, marigos, peaches, carambolas, and grapes come in for subordinate attention. The beautiful orange, the mandarin, Citrus nobilis, one of the recent importations into this country, is remarkable for having a deep crimson rind when ripe, which is quite detached from the fruit. The whole, writes Sir J.F. Davis, has a flattish aspect and is sometimes 4 or 5 inches in diameter, with the loose skin, when broken, opens like a puffball, disclosing the juicy lobes surrounded with a kind of network of fibers. Beautiful. The celebrated finger fruit comes very manifestly into our category and is a curious result of an ingenious horticulture. It is a peculiar kind of citrus, which by some means or other is made to run entirely into rind, the whole terminating at the head in several long, narrow processes like fingers. It has hence been named fauchot, or the hand of Fo. I wonder when that changed to Buddha's hand. I wonder if maybe Fo is one of Buddha's nicknames. Its odor is very powerful, but is considered as very fine. So entirely, however, is this strange production the result of art operating upon nature, that it does not appear a second time after the plant has been purchased. The Chinese have also some curious oranges, known as the horned oranges, from the circumstance of a number of little horn-like processes projecting from its upper end. It may be mentioned in connection with these plants that the productiveness of the orange is something quite enormous. A single tree at St. Michael's has been known to produce 20,000 oranges fit for packing, exclusively of about 1/3 more of damaged fruit. Mr. Fortune supplies a curious account of the production of vegetable tallow. The seeds of the tallow tree, after having been steamed and bruised, are heated over the fire. The tallow is thus completely separated, but it looks like coarse linseed meal. Subjected to expression, it exudes in a semi-fluid state and beautifully white, soon hardening and becoming solid. It is then made into cakes and exposed for sale in the markets for the manufacture of candles, but as those are apt to get soft, they are often dipped in wax of various colors and sometimes are finely ornamented. But this is a subject with an unconquerable tendency to expansion. Let us, therefore, having gone thus far, take a hasty leave of it at once.